Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you guys? I hope you are doing well. My name is Vina Septika Aminda. I'm a student of English Department at Islamic State University of Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. The subject of my presentation is the reason why we need to stop victim blaming in sexual harassment. I'm here today to discuss, so hopefully this talk will act as a springboard for this discussion. I plan to be brief, that is no more than 10 minutes. I have divided my talk into 3 sections. The subject can be looked at the under of the following headings. First, I'll give you an overview of the high incidence of sexual harassment and the large number of people blaming the victim. Then I will describe about why many people still blaming the victim and attach data why we need to stop victim blaming. And lastly, we will look at the conclusion. If you have any question, please hold your question until the end of my presentation. Okay, let's start with the beginning. The first section is why we need to stop victim blaming in sexual harassment. Nowadays, when cases of sexual harassment come to light or victims speak up, there are still many people who are blaming the victims instead of protecting them. As we know, victim blaming is part of rape culture. Rape culture is an environment where rape is prevalent and in which sexual harassment is normalized and excused in the media and popular culture. Victim blaming occurs when it is assumed that an individual did something to provoke the violence by action, words, or threats. It is a major reason that survivors of sexual violence do not report their assault. Common rape myths that often to say to the victim are, "She asked it, she wanted it, but there is no one on earth want to be raped. She lied, but there is only 2 until 5% false report, the rest are true." It is pathetic that our society did not aware about the victim's feeling once they try to speak up. That is, we need to educate ourselves by listening to this discussion. And let's now we move to why people still blaming the victim. One psychological phenomenon that contribute to this tendency to lay the blame on the victim is known as fundamental attribution error. This bias involves attributing other people's behaviors to internal, personal characteristics while ignoring external forces and variables that also might happen played a role. When we look at an event that happened in the past, we have a tendency to believe that we should have been able to see the signs and predict the outcome. This hindsight made it seem like the victims of a crime, accidents, or another form of misfortune should have been able to predict and prevent whatever problem might have befallen them. And this is not just something that happened when we are looking anything such as rape or assault. When someone becomes ill, people often seek to blame past behavior for a person's current state of health. It is same like when someone got sick, like cancer, heart disease, or even food poisoning. They often say, "Oh, you should not blah 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 so that you will not get sick," instead of find out why the disease can affect the bodies. The question like, "What were you wearing?" contrary to popular belief, but the fact that covering yourself from head to toe will not protect you from sexual assault. It can happen to everyone, even for them who use hijab. And the point of why we need to stop blaming the victim. Victim blaming attitudes marginalize the victim or survivor and make it harder to come forward and report the abuse. We need to stop it because if the survivor knows that you or society blames her for the abuse, she or he will not feel safe or comfortable coming forward and talking to you. Our tendency to blame the victim also stems in part from our need to believe that the world is a fair and just place. We often believe that they must have done something to deserve such a fate. By believing that the world is fair, by believing that people deserve what they get, and by blaming the victim, people are able to protect their illusion to reach terrible things could never happen to them. That is why you need to stop blaming the victim, because you will never know that you might experience the same thing. Remember that bad things can too happen to good people. And the last section, we are jumping to conclusion on what to do about it and how to educate people about it all. Before we judge the victim, we have to know about the fact that two cause rape are rapists, and what is the one thing that every single rape has in common? A rapist who chooses to rape. Also, the thing that do not cause rape are drinking or drug use, whether intentional or unintentional, clothing or makeup, flirting or previous consensual encounters. We need to highlight that no one on earth wants to be raped. When someday someone is coming out that she or he is the victim of sexual harassment, according to Harvard Edu, there is some do's and don'ts. And the first is the do's. 1. Make sure the survivors feel comfortable and in control. 2. Remember that telling their story can be extremely triggering. Give the survivors the time they need. 3. Inform the survivor of their options and appropriate resources. 4. Understand that part of the brain's response to trauma is to block our out-curtained memories. And 5. Take care of your own emotional well-being. And the don'ts: do not ask accusatory questions such as, what were you wearing? How much did you have to drink? And do not expect each and every victim to act the way you think a victim would do it. Trauma impacts all of us differently. There is no perfect victim or perfect way to respond to trauma. By educating ourselves about rape culture and how to avoid victim blaming, we can protect the victim and make them feeling brave to face it all, as well as the prevalent need to go to jail as the revenge. Now, we are at the end of this discussion. I hope you can learn something from this. That's all from me. I'm so sorry if I make any mistake. Last but not least, if you have any question, critiques, or suggestion, let me know by dropping your feedback on comment section. And that's all. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.